Amendment project by Caesar Tobar, period 4. Explanation. The 18th Amendment used to protect the prohibition of alcohol. This means this was the amendment to the U.S. Constitution that banned the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol beverages, although it didn't outlaw the actual consumption of alcohol. The social, economic, historic, or political reason for the amendment. 1919 Constitution Amendment was the origin, but didn't go into effect until a year later. 18th Amendment originated from the temperance movement, which was driven by a religious group that believed alcohol was a curse and evil, which led to the first temperance legislation, which appeared in 1838, in the form of a Massachusetts law prohibiting the sale of spirits in less than 15-gallon quantities. This led to Maine being the first to pass prohibition in the law in 1846, and many other states following Maine in the start of the Civil War. In 1916, Anti-Salon League emphasized more pressure on prohibition, which the goal was of increasing workers' efficiency. President Woodrow Wilson enacting a temporary wartime prohibition to save grain in 1917 due to World War I, which led to them prohibiting the 18th Amendment and sending it to the same year for ratification. The purpose of the 18th Amendment is to protect the American home, a sacred obligation imposed on the President to secure its honest enforcement and to eliminate the abuses which have grown up around it. Speakeasy was a salon or nightclub selling alcohol privilege illegally, especially during the Prohibition. Prices during 1920-21 skyrocketed for the liquor or any alcohol beverage in price ranging during the Prohibition and declined in 1923, but then rose again after that. Supreme Court case Hockey versus Smith. Who was involved? Harvey Smith and George Hockey. When did it happen? Argued in April 23, 1920, and decided on June 1st, 1920. Where did it happen? Ohio. What happened? In January 1919, the 18th Amendment was ratified by the Ohio General Assembly and was one of the 36 states to do so. In the 1918 Amendment, Ohio Constitution provided the amendments of the U.S. Constitution, which would be subject to a statewide referendum after ratification by the General Assembly. Harvey Smith, Ohio State Secretary, began to print ballots for the referendum. The validity of the amendment to the Ohio State Constitution was challenged by George Hockey and sought to have Harvey Smith stop issuing of his ballots. Ohio Amendment conflicted with the U.S. Constitution in Article 5 is what Hockey alleged. In the section, it stated that amendment would be ratified by the legislation. The Court of Common of Appeals of Franklin County ruled against him. Why did this case go to the Supreme Court? The United States Supreme Court upheld Ohio's ratification of the 18th Amendment over objections that Ohio Constitution provided for a popular referendum on the issue in 1920, June 1st. What was the decision? The decision was unanimous. The Supreme Court reversed the Supreme Court of Ohio and ruled Ohio's referendum provision conflicted with the Article 5 in the U.S. Constitution. Therefore, Ohio's referendum requirement was unconstitutional. Truth or false statement? Prohibition was easy for the government to enforce and had no problem doing it. Answer: false. Questions. 1. What is the difference between an amendment and a bill for legislation? The difference between an amendment and a bill for legislation is that the amendment is an alteration of an addition to the Constitution. For an amendment, you need a proposal of 3/4 votes in each House for ratification and 2/3 for votes in each House, meaning the Senate and the House of Representatives. The 21st Amendment was proposed and ratified through a state legislature with a state convention, which shows that the amendment can be ratified through that procedure as well. President's signature is not required for an amendment, even though some presidents played substantial roles in signing ratified amendments. Legislation for a bill procedure is different from an amendment because laws begin as bills and go through a very complicated long process in order for a bill to actually become a law. They first start off as ideas which are then proposed to either house, being the House of Representatives or the Senate. From there, they are referred to both committees in each house before a vote is taken. After that, it's sent to the other house for a long waiting process, only if approved, of course, before. Then finally it is approved by both houses. It then requires the signature and approval of the president, unlike an amendment. Who does your amendment protect or help? The 18th Amendment protected and helped the prohibition of alcohol, which meant the ban the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcohol beverages. The keyword is protected since the 21st Amendment was implemented and appealed the 18th Amendment and the Volstead Act. The 18th Amendment no longer protects or helps anything due to the 21st Amendment. 3. How did the amendment change the Constitution? The 18th Amendment changed the Constitution by banning the manufacture or sale and transport of alcohol, which led to the Congress passing the Volstead Act to provide federal enforcement of prohibition, which led to Congress implementing the 21st Amendment and appealed the 18th Amendment.